In this slide, I'm trying to present two things. First is how small Israel is and how big Israelis think it is, which obviously, in proportion, it's not the case. And second is that this is how most people in the West view the world. But in fact, the world is more like that. An economist named Danny Hua made an analysis of what is the center of gravity of economic activity in the world. And in the 1980s, it was somewhere west to Europe and Africa, somewhere in the Atlantic. In his projections, by 2045, the center of gravity of economic activity will be much in the east. Now, I think that for most people in the room, this is very clear. Either you are coming from Asia, or you just understand it because you live in the Gulf. For people in the West, and in Israel specifically, this slide could not be taken for granted. And I think that this is the main potential for the Abraham Accords, to connect between West and East. So the way we work is that we work with the businesses and corporates in the agri-food space in the UAE and in the GCC. We have some discussions to understand what are the needs, what are the technical objectives of the companies. We work on getting the right expertise. Sometimes the expertise from Israel is not necessarily a startup. It could be someone, a gentleman or a woman that has been doing the same exact thing for the last 40 years in a farm in the desert, and maybe this is exactly what you need. So we explore that together, and then we work together on the solution and the roadmap to implement those innovations, products, consultants, and whatever will help you and bring you value. We work with the entire ecosystem in Israel, from Startup Nation Central, which is the organization that I just presented its Finder platform, Tel Hai College, which is setting up the National Food Institute in Israel, which could basically be an extension of R&D departments, of food corporates globally, and of course in the GCC. Migal Research Institute, which is basically from 1970 doing research in food waste and precision agriculture. And we have more R&D centers like that. The main point, I think, of this slide is to demonstrate that in order to build an agri-food capacities and food security in the UAE, you need an ecosystem. An ecosystem, it's something that takes time to build. It's not something that you can build overnight. And to get academia, research institute, startups, corporates, all of that, it takes time. And I believe that with the Startup Nation and the Scale-Up Nation, if we really join forces, and this is what's happening in the last few months, I think really interesting things could happen. And joint capacity building could be done. To me, it's fascinating.